So in today's conversation, I'm going to touch on a couple of topics. One is that there are a lot of students who are doing their internships. So I'll talk a little bit about internships and also talk about some of the application process in terms of guidelines everyone needs to be taken care of, and also talk briefly about how the graduate school admissions process works. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll answer the questions as you comment, and I'll look into it in more detail. First, let's get into what you folks should be doing as part of the internship process. So something I would strongly recommend is that as you work on your internship, focus on a bunch of things, like make sure that you come across in a very presentable manner with your employer. So if you're in your third year, or in your second year, you should be doing your internships. So a couple of things to keep in mind would be that, firstly, make sure that you understand the scope of a project in terms of what is it the leaders expect from you and what your manager wants from you. Make sure that it's captured as a metric and given to you in advance so that there's no confusion in terms of what is it you have to achieve by the end of the internship. So that's piece one. Make sure you're always there on meetings on time. You always respond to managers when they ask you questions. If you do not know something, let them know that you will get back to them, and make sure that you get back to them. Make sure that any follow-up work, any homework given to you, you address it and you give weekly updates to the managers. So these are some good hygiene factors by which you can make sure that you end up impressing your manager. Make sure there's also a check-in meeting in the middle of the internship so that you have good feedback in terms of how you're coming across and how you're tracking towards your goals. So I think these are some very basic factors to keep in mind as you work on your internship. And the second factor I would highlight is that make sure that the scope as outlined in your internship is something you can actually work on. So again, look at what interests you in the work you do and make sure that that's flagged in the outcome and the metrics of the internship as it's flagged to you. So these are some tips regarding the internship process. And again, remember that internships are not the end of everything. You will always have opportunities later to find a meaningful job, a meaningful full-time job. And you don't need to do an internship to do a great job, but an internship does help. So that's one part about the internship process. I would also ask you to focus on a couple of things that at this stage when it comes to the applications for graduate school programs, especially if you're in your third year and you're moving towards your final year. So you have to give your GRE a little early so that you have enough time with you to prep and make sure that you're ready with a good GRE score. When I say a good GRE score, I'm talking about a score which is between the 85th to the 90th percentile. So make sure that you get a good GRE score. If not, make sure that you repeat the exam multiple times till you get a good score. So the advantage of GRE is that you can take the exam many times until you get a very good score. Once you get a very good score, then you need to prep for getting your admissions packet in place. So this basically means that you will have to work with your professors who are going to give you letters of recommendation. So make sure that you reach out to your professors, ask from them what is it they're looking for, make sure that you're giving them enough time in advance, prep them, help them understand which universities you're applying for. So these things help. So even at the time you give your GRE exam, you will have an option to send your scores free of cost to a bunch of universities. So make sure you avail on that option and do enough work in advance and identify your top 5, top 10 colleges you're going to apply for. Preferably if you're applying to 10 colleges, I would say choose 3 ambitious colleges where you feel that it's going to be a stretch for you to get 3 which you think a person with the profile could get with a bit of luck, and maybe 4 universities where you feel that it's going to be a slam dunk, you're easily going to get in. So these are ways by which you can identify a bunch of colleges from your end. And then if the college expects you to have your TOEFL, which I think is not very necessary, but make sure that you read what's required, make sure you're ready with your TOEFL scores. And typically the admissions deadlines are in December. So put your admissions packet together, get your letters of recommendation, which is typically done online. You could also do it in a way by which you prepare your statement of purpose, your resume, and keep it all ready so that you apply early. I would recommend that if you're very interested in a college, try to apply a little early, because the early applications do get seen by the professors faster. So if you mention some name of a professor in your statement of purpose, the professor may get a chance to look at the statement of purpose much earlier than other folks. And this might guarantee you a place inside the place you want, inside the college you want to get in. So these are some easy ways by which you can get noticed. There's also one set of questions I got about the Quad Fellowship program. So this is as per a video I posted earlier in my channel. Check it up if you have not. But the Quad Fellowship is a fellowship which is given to around 25 students across the Quad countries, which is India, US, Japan, and Australia. So if you want to go for graduate studies in the US, this is probably a great idea, because even if you're applying to colleges abroad, say in fall of 2023, which is August of 2023, you have to apply for this fellowship as soon as possible. The deadline for these applications is June of this month. So you need to fill up a bunch of items on the website. So go to Quad Fellowship, there is their website. And once you go there, you'll be asked to fill up online essays, statement of purpose, submit your resume, submit your details, submit your, I don't think they need your GRE scores, but then I don't think also they need your TOEFL scores, but they may need your letters of recommendations. And once your entire admissions packet is submitted, they will evaluate it and conduct further interviews. By around October, you will get an outcome from the Quad Fellowship program in terms of where your candidature is and if you have been called for interviews. So if you've been called for interviews, you'll also get an update by the end of October in terms of have you been selected. So once you have this information with you in terms of if you're selected for the Quad Fellowship program, it makes life much easier, because then you can apply to whichever college you want. You have funding guaranteed from the Quad Fellowship program. You could apply to MS programs, MNG programs, MBA programs, and it's going to be valid for all the programs. So that's easy ways by which you can decide which colleges to apply. You can even shoot for the top colleges like MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, Cornell, and so on. So there are a lot of options which open up if you get to the Quad Fellowship. But again, it's super competitive, which means that only 25 students are going to get it across India. And people who are going to be both newcomers to university and people who are already studying university can apply for this program. So you're going to be competing with a really large pool of tens of thousands of students. So your chances of getting in is going to be pretty low statistically. But again, if you can show a passion for some of the things as outlined in the Quad Fellowship website, like having a passion to bring people together, working at the intersection of science, society, and society. Also having a strong passion for STEM fields. This can make you stand out from competitors, and you could end up getting called for interviews. And again, when you get a call for interview, it's in your hands in terms of if you get selected. Typically, the selection process for interviews and the selection ratios close to 40%, 40-50%. So there's a good chance of you getting selected once you get called for interview. So those are some deadlines you could look into in terms of applying for the Quad Fellowship by the end of this month and getting ready for the GRE exams by the middle of this year, and your college admissions, which is MS PhD applications, by December or early January. So I've covered a bunch of topics out here. I've covered the Quad Fellowship program. I've covered the GRE and the college admissions process, and also touch briefly on what you need to be doing towards applying for these college programs abroad. One more question I got recently was about letters of recommendation and how would professors fill in a letter of recommendation. This is an interesting question because most letters of recommendations are given confidentially by the professor to the university. Students do not get a chance to look at the letters of recommendation. So When professors want to work directly, that means that they'll get an online link from the university. They click the link, they upload the information, and it goes straight to the university. Students have to waive the ability to see the letters of recommendation. That is good practice. On top of it, you want to tell the professor well in advance in terms of which universities you're going to be applying for and which professors you want to work with. So in case the professor you want a letter or recommendation from knows that university, knows that professor, they can put in a letter of recommendation, which is stronger than the others they would provide. And you may stand out from competition. So make sure the professors know well in advance. They may require a resume or a list of things you've done from your end in terms of applying to graduate school abroad. So make sure you give them all the information. The most important thing in a letter of recommendation is that the professor is going to write a letter based on your research interest and research aptitude. So the number one factor which a lot of universities use when it comes to looking at admissions is your aptitude towards research. Everything else is secondary. So the moment your professor writes you a strong letter of recommendation saying that you understand what it is to do research, it basically sends a signal to the university that you're doing a lot of research work at your end. You already have prior exposure, so you don't need to be trained from scratch when it comes to research credentials. So this could really help you in terms of standing out from competition and getting a leg up when it comes to the admissions process, because most professors want you to jump into doing experiments with them right from day one, and they don't want to train you from scratch. Most of the job of training is left to the postdocs and the students already in their laboratories. And the more you know about the research methodology in advance is going to be easier for the professors. So a letter of recommendation is all about research. The professor has to talk mainly about the research you've done, the internships you've done, projects you've done with the professor, what your strong points are, what your weak points are. That really is the intent of the letters of recommendation. Okay, so I've covered a bunch of topics here. And if there are any other questions you have, do let me know. Let me know in the comments and I'll definitely take time to respond to you. So this week's AMA is going to be pretty short and simple. Hopefully you like it. Press the like button, subscribe to my channel. And if you have further questions, do let me know. Cheers, everyone. Have a good time. Bye-bye.